Hello and welcome to the BKCFFL ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn, here to bring you the good KC sports news. Got a lot on the docket tonight. College football has officially started up. Going to talk about that a little bit. We've got some Chiefs news. They have also started their regular season. And some Royals playoff news. We are talking about the Royals in September, folks. Let's give that a round of applause. Way to go to the boys in blue for far exceeding expectations. We've also got some fantasy football news. The Burn KC Fantasy Football League is in full swing. Top that off with some soccer news, some rugby news, and other than that, that's really it. We don't have any college basketball news. We don't really have much in the way of like major segments other than, of course, college football, the Chiefs, the Royals, and just overall, not too much going on. I know I said it was going to be long, but those three major segments are doozies. So strap in, sit tight. I hope you enjoy the show. It's going to be a good one. And let's just get this started, shall we? All right. Let's start off with some college football news. Week 1 and Week 2 have officially passed with a few surprises, I would say. Let's go over some results here. For Kansas, they started out Week 1 with a 48-3 W versus Lindenwood, which, I don't think anyone didn't expect, I would say. But then Week 2 came. And they had a game away against Illinois, who they beat 34-23 last season in Lawrence. And I think a lot of people really underestimated this Illinois program. This Illinois program returns a lot of experience. They have a fantastic defense and overall have enough offense to be a competitive football team. I'm not going to say that their offense is anything spectacular. I think they have a lot of good playmakers. It's just playmakers that haven't been together a long time, and really, they don't really have like anything spectacular play calling wise. So I think that's why a lot of people said that Kansas was going to go in and win by double digits. That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. They lost 23-17. I think really because of just gross mismanagement and the fact that Jalen Daniels just had a super rusty game. Jalen Daniels threw for 2 touchdowns, but he also threw for 3 interceptions, including one that got returned for a touchdown, and just made some boneheaded mistakes, mistakes that a senior really shouldn't be making. But I think the story doesn't necessarily, I don't think really the onus falls on him for that loss, him solely at least. I think a lot of it falls on Jeff Grimes. And to hear Jeff Grimes speak about what all went on during this Illinois game, how, this defense, the Illinois defense apparently pulled out some tricks that he's never seen before in college football. And just, he kept on saying, well, I got to give the ball to Neal and Highshaw during crunch time. Thank you, Captain Obvious. And, I'm a KU alum. I'm obviously a KU fan in that regard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I own my homerism for sure. What we saw on Saturday was an embarrassment. I mean, even Lance was like, how we recover from this is going to speak volumes about this program. He even felt it. Kelly Leipold felt it by tweeting some things that she shouldn't have. And overall, it was a really bad week for KU football. This was a major stinker. It hurts the program and it hurts what this program is trying to do, and that's compete for a Big 12 title. Does it hurt their college football playoff chances? A little. Not as much as like a conference loss would, but it definitely puts a bit of a dent, especially in the confidence of this KU football team. You can see it's shaky just by the fan reaction of doom and gloom. I don't think KU is fully out of the race. I think they will make the improvements. But Lance is exactly right. I think it is how you respond to this game because again, it was a stinker. It was such a frustrating game to watch, and this was a game that was easily winnable for Kansas. Kansas was the better team outside of quarterback play. Really, the wide receivers were there. They made good catches. It was a matter of quarterback play and coaching that killed KU, excuse me, in that game. But you move on, you learn and you live. Grimes is a new offensive coordinator, but I think you give more attention to those running backs for sure. And I think you go back to the roots. And the fact that Zabrowski didn't step in is also a little concerning because he honestly should have seen the passing game and just been like, okay, like it's obvious that there's something up with Daniels. I don't know if it's an injury per se. A lot of people were pointing out that the velocity on his throws was getting weaker and weaker as the game went on. I hope and pray that it's not, but I mean, when it's that noticeable, it's tough to say. This game will matter a ton. This upcoming game against UNLV, but we'll go more into that later. K-State week 1 had a victory 41-6 over UT Martin, and then a 34-27 victory over Tulane. Let's talk about this one real quick. Tulane had K-State beat. They did. For 3.5 quarters, they had K-State beat. They were up 10 at half. K-State did make a bit of a comeback, but the story of this game isn't the matter of, oh, K-State survived a scare. It's the fact that K-State survived a scare that they shouldn't have survived. Because that offensive passive interference call that was called against Tulane was complete hog. I mean, just an awful, 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 awful call that decided the game. And, I've always been a proponent of the referees. I was a referee myself for a bit throughout my college years. It's a tough job. And, making those decisions, especially when you don't have replay, it's hard. It's very hard. But that is not a penalty that you should have called to begin with, but especially during that time. And I can't believe that K-State escaped with that game. I really can't, because Tulane had them on the ropes. K-State is not looking as good as everybody thinks they are going to look. Right now, they're favored to win against Arizona. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't think their pass defense can compete with Titaro and McMillan. I really don't think so, because that Tulane passing offense cut up. cut up the K-State offense or the K-State pass defense. It did. Yeah, they got an interception. Congrats. That being said, they still they still beat you up pretty good and scared the pants off you. I think a lot of K-Staters knew that Tulane absolutely could have been a trap game going in, but I don't think a lot of them really anticipated them leading for 3.5 quarters. I'm sure they anticipated being close, but I don't think they anticipated Tulane having a double-digit lead going into half. So this is a scare for K-State. I think they will learn from it, but you look at Arizona coming to town, you've got to smother T-Mac. You got to cut off that connection between him and Noah Fafita if you have any shot at winning. I think their 72% chance to win is egregiously high, and we'll see if it shows come Friday. For Mizzou, Mizzou has been coasting, and a 51-0. They still haven't been scored on. It's a 51-0 W week 1 versus Murray State, and then 38-0 versus Buffalo. Granted, those teams are. I mean, Buffalo is the doormat of the MAC, and Murray State's an FCS school. So it's not super duper impressive, but I think going in after you lost so many defensive pieces from 2023, it's a good start. I think it's a really good start, and I think Mizzou has every shot at being an SEC competitor this year. Now, this next game is definitely going to be a determinant of that. You're facing Boston College, who is ranked 24th and is going on a bit of a tear right now. They're good, and they'll give you a fight for sure, especially on the weekend of 9/11, which, if you don't know, is Red Bandana Weekend for Boston College. It's a very, very important weekend for the Boston College faithful. It's a long story, but to summarize it, one of their players, I believe, was either a first responder or was on the plane during the 9/11 attacks and died during the 9/11 attacks. And they kind of do the red bandana thing because he always wore red bandana, and they do it in his honor. It's a game that they have a chip on their shoulder, and Mizzou's got to watch their back because this will be their first true test of the season. Now, as you can see, some scares and some concerns for the two Kansas teams. For Mizzou, their defense is riding high and plans to continue that upward trend. Here's what's on the docket for week 3, though. Kansas versus UNLV, Friday, September 13th at 6 p.m. on ESPN. I will be covering that game for College Football Dogs. If Kansas puts up what they put up against Illinois, they're going to get walked by UNLV. UNLV's defense is very good. Their offense is also very good, and they're a group of 5 contender for that college football playoff spot, reserved for the group of 5, the best group of 5 team. Kansas has to be on their toes. It's at home, which is good, but they have to utilize the run game. UNLV's run game is very, very good. Or run defense, I meant to say, is very good. They're ranked 10th in the NCAA right now, only allowing, I think it was under 150 yards a game rushing. So it's solid. And, Kansas has a great run game that I'm sure they're going to utilize a lot more after, putting up that just piss poor performance against Illinois. But I mean, the run game didn't have it, but the offense in general did. Uh, but I think UNLV is going to be ready for that, and Grimes has to put up or shut up. Otherwise, Lance has some decisions to make. So this is a game where Kansas has a lot to lose, but if they come out with a statement win, they have a lot that they can gain back in terms of being that contender. So big game for Kansas, big game for Kansas State as well. They welcome Arizona Friday, September 13th, 7 p.m. on Fox. Uh, Arizona's a tough squad. They are also ranked. Um, I T-Mac's going to be very, very tough on that pass defense. That pass defense is, I'm not going to say they're looking suspect, but it's not a pass defense that you kind of want to depend on. I think if you mob T-Mac throughout the game and just make sure he's covered, you cover a lot of bases with this Arizona offense, but they also have a running back that could definitely do damage. In San Jose State transfer, oh goodness, what's his name? Um, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I apologize, but he was 1,000-yard rusher last season, and he's set to do it again. So just be wary of that. It's going to be a tough game for K State. For Mizzou, kind of already talked about it. Boston College, Saturday, September 14th, 11:45 a.m. on the SEC network. All these times are central, by the way. I know I use Eastern time for CFD, but that's because I'm required to. But SEC network is where you're going to catch that game on Saturday. Uh, Again, tough game. This will be a true test on the Missouri defense. I think the Missouri offense can definitely move the ball against this Boston College defense. I think their defense is fine, nothing spectacular, just fine. But this Boston College offense can move the ball. Thomas Castellanos is a very good quarterback, and he can do damage. So be wary of that. That's pretty much it, though, for college football. Let's move on to the Chiefs, shall we? All right. Let's talk about the Chiefs, shall we? The Chiefs opened up the regular season against the Baltimore Ravens at home this past Saturday, a rematch of the AFC Championship game from last year. Fireworks were expected, and fireworks we got. Both offenses showed some pretty explosive plays and some trickeration, as well as just really good. I noticed this some very good rushing attacks. It wasn't just Lamar that ran the ball well. I believe it was Gus Edwards who was in the backfield for the Ravens, and he made the Chiefs pay on a couple of runs. And overall, it was kind of there wasn't really like home run plays. There were a couple that were borderline home run plays, I guess, but overall it was a dink and dunk contest that came down to which defense would show up when it mattered the most in key moments. And it came down to the final play, where Isaiah Likely had his big toe out of bounds on the game-tying touchdown reception. I can't believe people are actually arguing that he was inbounds and like, oh, it shouldn't count if the majority of his foot is inbounds. Like, when has that ever been a thing? If that was ever a thing, you realize how many like controversial calls would be overturned, or not even controversial. Key calls, not necessarily controversial because there's nothing controversial about it. The rules are the rules. He was out of bounds, so just the discourse online is unfathomable. I realize, well, they shouldn't have called so many illegal formations, or at least they should have kept it consistent. Blah 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 blah. Since when has the NFL not used their points of not used their officiating points of emphasis way more than they should have? They did it with DPI. They did it with the catch rule. They did it with every single rule that they focused on that season since I can remember. It sucks. Yeah, the Ravens got the short end of the stick on that, but also Lonnie Staley was in illegal formation. And going back over the tape, yeah, you probably could have called Jawan Taylor offside or not offside for illegal formation on a couple of those plays, but I mean, it just looked like Jawan Taylor. And to be frank, it was more blatant with Staley, which is saying something because if you're more blatant than Jawan Taylor in your penalties, that is saying something. Because that dude that dude makes no effort to hide it. But Chiefs won 21-20, or excuse me, 27-20 in what was a real thriller. The offense looks like normal. Rice looks a lot better than he did last year. And how about Xavier Worthy? Xavier Worthy looked like an absolute stud in week one. 2 touchdowns on 3 touches. Sure ain't bad. This wide receiver core looks night and day different than what it did last year. Um, I'm really excited to see how Matt Nagy and Patrick Mahomes utilize that wide receiver group because it's full of studs this year. Again, far cry from what it was last year when you had Dollar General cashiers um, posing as wide receivers. Unfortunate. Defensively, liked what I saw with the LB core, specifically Leo Chenal. Dude looks like a starting linebacker. And it's about time because I was really rooting for Chenal. I think he made some big plays and some big moments. That blocked field goal in the Super Bowl last year was huge in getting the Chiefs that tie and the eventual win. So seeing him make some plays with the starting group is very, very nice. Drew Tranquil looks like he earned that extension. The only linebacker that I'm not really impressed with was Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton looked slow, and just out of place. And I hope he shores up that part of his game because that's not the Nick Bolton that we're used to. I'm hoping he's not, moping that there is a possibility he doesn't get a new contract signed next season. I think the Chiefs are really going to focus on that offensive line group. Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey are likely going to get those extensions. Nick Bolton may not, but I'm hoping that's not the reason he's playing slow and almost not necessarily apathetic, but he looks slow and he looks out of place. So overall, I don't want to see who I thought was our best linebacker turn into a cone. Secondary looks fine. I mean, there's a couple guys that could definitely use some work. I think we knew that going in. And the defensive line, they collapsed on Lamar against a very good offensive line and looked good. I mean, Chris Jones still looks like Chris Jones. And the end caps look like they improved quite a bit as well. So overall, not a bad performance to kick off the year. The Chiefs faced the Bengals, who lost against the Patriots on this past Sunday, but they faced them Sunday at 3:25 on CBS. Don't take the Bengals lightly. I think the Chiefs know that the Bengals, they consider this game their Super Bowl for some reason, and they're going to come in with some fight. I think they're pretty ticked off that they lost against a team that was supposed to be a league doormat, but ended up beating on them pretty good in Gerard Mayo's debut win. So that's enough about the Chiefs. I feel like nothing really else going on in regard to that. Obviously, there's a few pop culture things surrounding the Chiefs that I am not going to get into because I am not going to delve into politics on this channel ever. So don't ask. I know I've talked about some morality things, but the extent of my political talk, I'm not going to go into who supports who and whatever, because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and talk about the Royals. Again, we're talking about the Royals in September. That's awesome. I don't care who you are. That's awesome. I very much enjoy that. So let's talk about the Royals. All right. Let's talk about the Royals. The Royals are currently leading the Yankees as I am recording this video. 1-0 in the top of the sixth. If I remember right, they had 2 outs last I checked, but that may be done. Let's see here. Yep, bottom of the sixth, 1 out now. But still up 1-0. Let's hope that holds. Royals did win 5-0 against the Yankees last night, blanking in a crazy good Yankee offense. That is, I think, only the 13th time they've been shut out this season, which for baseball standards is saying something. We're 147 games into this, and they've only been shut out 13 times in a game that you can get shut out fairly easy in. But I digress. The 80-66 Boys and Blues have their best record since 2015 and are sitting pretty in the AL playoff hunt. We're talking about them in September. Unbelievable. Who would have thought that we would be talking about the Royals this late into the season? I for sure thought we would just be like, yeah, Royals, they're like 40 games back at this point in the season and are all but eliminated. But they're firmly holding on to a wild card spot with a 2.5 game lead over the Twins for that second spot with 15 games to go. And who would have thought? Look at us. That Paul Rudd quote, from Hot Ones. Great show, by the way. I love Hot Ones. The Royals, though, are 4 games back from the Guardians after kind of a disappointing series against the Twins. Took them down from the division lead. They're still within striking distance. They could still possibly take the division if the Guardians just collapse, but I doubt it. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter. Obviously, you would rather be a division winner, but wild card spot is way above expectations for this season. And as of now, the Royals' magic number is 12 to clinch a spot in the playoffs. So essentially what a magic number is, for those that don't know, are games that you either win or that the teams below you lose to clinch a spot for the wild card. So if the Royals can win 12 more games, so if they win 12 out of the 15, they're in. However, if they lose a couple, that's fine as long as teams below them also lose a couple. So if the Twins go on a streak or if the Tigers go on a streak or someone, we may have some issues. And if the Royals, stink. But if you can win 12 more games, you don't even have to worry about that. So, and even if you don't, as long as you win a majority of them, you should be all right. And the Royals, the rest of their schedule looks decent. It definitely isn't horrible, if I remember right. Let me have a look here real quick. So they got the Pirates next. Pirates are 70 and 76. Pirates have good pitching, but that's pretty much the only thing that I'm worried about with them. And then they face the Tigers. They face the Tigers at home. They face Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. Um, Tigers are within striking distance of that wild card spot. They're 3 games back of the Twins right now, but that's still a team that you kind of have to be wary of. Same with the Giants. Giants are 70 and 74. Nationals less so, 64 and 80. So hoping that they can pull that off. And then they finish out against the Braves, who are right on par with the Royals at 79 and 66. So decent schedule, but not nearly as tough as this stretch was. And I think the Royals came out on the better end of that stretch, especially if, the result against the Yankees tonight holds. If they can take the series against the Yankees, that's massive. But, still quite a few games to go. The Royals are well within striking distance of that playoff spot, and that is more than what I could have asked for this season. Bobby Witt Jr. has been Bobby Witt Jr. He's still in the hunt for the AL MVP. Him and Aaron Judge are pretty much the 2 guys that are head-to-head right now, which Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge, so he's probably going to win it, but Bobby Witt Jr.'s had a huge year, and to be honest with you, I've seen a lot of guys saying Aaron Judge shouldn't win it. I think Bobby Witt Jr. should win it because he's the better defensive player and has been more efficient offensively and, doesn't just hit home runs, which is not the only facet of baseball. So, but Aaron Judge is the media darling. So, like I said, but Salvador Perez, he's 37 years old and he's still playing some of the best ball of his career. And I think he went over 100 RBIs yesterday or a couple days ago. And for 37 years old, he looks like he is still humming. So a far cry from what he was last season, because last season was not very good for Mr. Perez, for El Captain and El Capitan, excuse me. It's good to see him still going, and I'm hoping that he can bring more playoff glory to this Royals team. I think he's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame, and he has been such a fun player to watch over these years. Overall, teams clicking and finally winning games against teams that have winning records. Gosh, it feels so good to say that because before the All-Star break, you couldn't say that. The Royals were like, well, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. But, what about the teams that are on par or better than them, supposedly? You got to beat those teams too. But anyway, really the only drawback of this stretch that's happened is the loss of Vinny Pasquantino, who led the team in RBIs. Pasquantino broke his thumb against the Twins after a misplayed ball and is out for a projected 6 to 8 weeks. Hopefully the Royals have him back in time for the playoffs. He broke his thumb about 2 weeks ago, so at minimum 4 weeks, at most 6 weeks. So hopefully he'll be back in time for the postseason. Should the Royals get there, which by all accounts, they're well on their way. But they're surviving without him, and that's huge. They're beating one of the best teams in baseball right now, and just it's crazy when you don't have your leading RBI hitter. But huge series, and just a few more games to go in the regular season. Let's go Royals. Please wrap this up with a bow and clinch that playoff spot, because it has been so long since I watched playoff baseball. I need it like I need air because playoff baseball is so fun. I mean, it is. It is. If you have a team in the playoffs, you know what it. I mean, uh, there was a interview with Eric Hosmer. I think he did it for KCTV5, and he talked about what the air felt like in October of 2015, and he was just like, "There's a magic to it," and I fully agree. I think there's just something about playoff baseball that is just different. And yeah, the Chiefs have been super successful these past couple of years. Yeah, the Super Bowls have been amazing, and just the attitude around town has been incredible. But for being there for the 2015 World Series was something completely different. I mean, it was absolutely unreal watching the Royals win a World Series. And here's hoping it can happen again, right? Let's talk about some fantasy football. Got some fantasy football updates, and then we'll wrap up, okay? Sound good? Sound good? Good. All right. Let's talk some fantasy football, shall we? Doing it on Sleeper this year. Sleeper's a great app. Highly recommend if you guys are looking to start a fantasy league of your own. It's a great app to use. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's super easy to set up a league, and overall, I have very, very high praise for the app. Just pulling it up here. Switching that around so that I don't lose because Puka Nacua is out. But the Burn KC Fantasy Football League. Let's go over the weekly recap here. So Sleeper also does this little awards thing after every week, and I think it's really fun, to be honest. We've got some fun little awards to go through because wait, did I win? No, I lost. Yeah, no, guess what? I went 0-5 in fantasy football. Please don't listen to me for fantasy football advice. But here's what we got going on for fantasy football this season. So, the weekly report for week one. Sleeper does these like weekly reports, and I love it. The best team, Laporta Potty, Yarmatumbo, Gavin Kirk, scored a whopping 179.28 points in his win over. Who did he win against? Let me see here. He won. I'll just leave it at that. It doesn't say who he won against. But the worst team, unfortunately, was my mother, Team Crowhawks, for 78.56 points. It's unfortunate, but just the way the donkey dances sometimes. Got some players of the week here. Josh Allen for over-under 31.18 points versus Arizona. Saquon Barkley for my girlfriend Sarah. Over-under, by the way, is my stepbrother Levi. 33.2. I'm not going to reveal that information that I just got. My eyes only. We'll go over it next week. Got Jay Reed here for Gavin, 33.10 at Philadelphia. Kyle Pitts was the top tight end in this league. This week one. How's that happen? What? Who? Where were the tight ends this week? He scored 11 points. 11 points. It's unbelievable. And you still got it for him, for Demetrius. So shout out to Demetrius. Kicker, 26 points for Jake Moody. Golly. 26 points. How did you score 26 points as a kicker? John Randall, though, congrats. You got the best kicker, and then Vince, my boy Vince, got the best defense with 18 points for Cleveland. Or excuse me, for Dallas. Dallas's defense. Jake Moody was the kicker, by the way. That got 26 points. Bench warmers of the week. Don't really need to go over that. We've got most efficient manager going to Gavin. Least efficient manager going to my mom. Highest points in a loss goes to my girlfriend Sarah. Unfortunate. Lowest points in a win goes to my boy Jackie Legs, Jack Merritt. Biggest blowout. I am so sorry you had to face Gavin in week one, Sarah. It's 179.28 to 129.12 against Sarah. Narrow victory. It wasn't really that narrow. My boy Luke got me by 31. So as you can see, there wasn't really, a whole lot of parity between these two between either team. If that's the narrow victory, 31 points. Overachiever, Gavin got that one. Underachiever, I got it. How was I supposed to know Ramondre Stevenson was going to go off against that Bengal defense? How was I supposed to know? Anyway, standings right now, Gavin on top. We got Vince number 2, Demetrius number 3, Luke number 4, Jack at number 5, Sarah at number 6, Levi at number 7, myself at number 8, John at number 9, and my mother dead last. Unfortunate, my mom. Some week 2 matchups, though. We've got me versus John Randall. We've got Sarah versus Vince. We've got Gavin versus Levi. That'll be a good one. 2 fantasy football aficionados there going at it. We've got my mom versus Luke. We've got Jack versus Demetrius. That should be another good one. And overall, looking like a good week of fantasy football. Thank you again to everyone that's joined. My apologies if you weren't able to join. I was only able to get a 10-team league going next year, though. I am going to be using Sleeper again, and I should put out a little bit more advanced notice as to what I'm going to be doing with that. This is year 3. Is it really year 3 of doing fantasy football for me? Goodness gracious. Anyway, I've been doing this a long time. Goodness. But thank you for joining me for this journey. It's been almost 3 years, which is crazy. But it's been a great 3 years. I've been blessed by being able to attend Big 12 Media Days and getting the opportunities that I've gotten over the past couple of years. So thank you for your support, and I hope I can make it worth your while. This award that I got for the fantasy football is going to be pretty cool. I'm putting together a little bit of an award package in exchange for monetary award, because your boy's a little broke. I can't really do that without asking for money for you guys to chip in. But I wanted to do a free league this year because I don't want to be that guy. I don't know. I like paid leagues, but it's just like you got to collect money and you got to be that guy. I don't know. Anywho, let's close this one out and go into the outro. Anywho, that's our show. Thank you so much for joining me. I got a few little tidbits here in soccer news. Shawinga of the Kansas City Current is still on top for the NWSL Golden Boot Award with just a few games left to go. Kansas City is, I believe, 3rd in the NWSL tables, so sitting pretty in the playoffs. Should be a good little run. They have a chance to get revenge on the Orlando Pride this upcoming week in Orlando, so that should be a great game. We don't really need to talk about sporting. Vermees might be gone after this year. That's pretty much the only thing we got to say about them. In rugby news, the St. Louis Bombers came to town against the Kansas City Blues and did some damage. The Division One team lost by quite a bit, but the Division Two team beat the Bombers 34-29. The two teams have two road trips. One going to Chicago to face the Lions, the Division One team, and then the Division Two team is going up to Omaha to play the Goats. This upcoming Saturday should be a good slate of games there. And overall, we've got really not much other news to go over. So that's, like I said, our show. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been the Burn KC signing off. Have a great night. And as always, burn it down. We'll see you.